I'm Adam Roberts, a husband, a father of two amazing teenagers. I'm an international fire chef, actually, a pitmaster, they call me. I've travelled the world, done a lot of things locally, but also internationally when it comes to my businesses. I've had 4 businesses over the last 20 years, but I'm also a city councillor and I take that role pretty seriously, but I do try and get a balance between family, work and also serving my community. I started my journey with Port Macquarie Hastings Council back in 2010. So it was about 14 years ago I announced I was running for council back then. It was during the administration period. I was a business owner at the time and I really thought that there was an opportunity to help drive our economy forward, look after our small business, but also make sure that Port Macquarie Hastings was a great place in the future. When I grew up here in Port Macquarie, there wasn't a lot of work options, there wasn't a lot of educational options for anyone leaving school. I actually had to leave Port Macquarie straight after school to go to TAFE. So what I wanted to do was just make sure that I could plug in, potentially help make sure that Port Macquarie had those things that could keep our kids here if they wanted to stay here and didn't have to leave like I had to when I was growing up. Team approach is really important to make sure that we have a really strong direction. What I've done this time around is make sure that I've got a really solid team, people with incredible business acumen, but also people that are connected to the local area, and I think that's really important. When any situation comes up, we're going to need some skills around the table to solve that problem, but we're also going to need locals who really understand the place so that they can put their personal touch on that decision and make sure that they're in tune with the rest of our community. In the current term of council, what I've put together with the current Mayor Peter Pinson is what we call the blueprint for generational equity. What that is, it's not just words and it's not just a plan or a strategy, but it's taking some of those big fundamental issues that we've had in the past, like not leaving enough room for road corridors in particular, or expanding our water and sewer network. And we've put that together in a plan and a strategy that we're going to roll out over the next 20 to 30 years if we can make sure that we can embed that process. So for me, taking that big picture, that strategic approach is exactly where we need our next council to go, but also to support the decisions that we've just made recently and making sure that we do set out a really good strategic plan for the growth of the area, because as we know, there's just so many people moving to this area and we've got to provide the infrastructure to make sure the cost of living is held in check, the affordable housing's ticked off, but also we've got the services to provide to make sure the quality of life is where it needs to be. So the Team Roberts policies, really simple. I think for us it's about getting the footpaths, parks and gardens, the road network, the congestion sorted out. I don't think there's a lot of room coming up for some of the nice to have things. I think we've really got to get back to that roads, rates and rubbish approach. Make sure that we put as much resource into the fundamentals as we can. Our sewer network is in dire straits. The water supply is something that we've really got to keep an eye on. But it is the role of council to make sure those core services are delivered on time, on budget. I think we've done a lot of work in the last 3 years in particular to bring things up to scratch. People see roads being resurfaced, roads being expanded. That's all great work, but we need to continue that. And if anything, just double down on building that infrastructure. The Breakwall is one of the most iconic places in our region. I grew up surfing there. A lot of us, might have met friends there after school or before school. There's 140 plus memorial plaques on that breakwall. It's such an iconic part of our region. If you have a look at any postcard or image of Port Macquarie, it's got the breakwall. So the breakwall is synonymous with Port Macquarie in particular. It's a great place for locals to hang out, but also it's an area of pride. People come to Port Macquarie just to paint on a rock. So it's really important for tourism, but it's also a place that a lot of us go to reflect as well. Standing on the end of the breakwall, looking out over the water, it's a space that's really special to us. So for me, protecting that at all costs is exactly where it needs to be in the future. The presentation of Port Macquarie in the Hastings region is really important, and not only for tourism and economic development, but for people to feel like the place is looked after. And that's a real big role and function of council, to make sure our parks and gardens and our headlands and those recreational spaces are well looked after. What we've started over the last few years is a program of getting back to areas that are well maintained. We've adjusted how and when we mow the lawns, doubling down on those holiday periods in particular to make sure Port Macquarie is presented in the best light possible, because the last thing we want is tourists coming into town and thinking that we don't care about the place. So the presentation of the area says a lot about the leadership of the area as well. So for me, it's really important to present Port Macquarie in its best light. I wear a lot of hats. In business, if I go out after something, I normally achieve it. And if I haven't got it on the first try, I'll try again and make sure that I get it right, or I get what I'm after. Not in an ownership sense, it's just I have a passion and a drive to excel. And I think the reality is here, I've got a lot of experience in local government and I can see what needs to be done for the benefit of the community in particular. We can have the best place on earth to live, work and play. It's not that far out of our reach. We have huge potential here. We're a growing region. We have amazing people here. The intellect that's moved to Port Macquarie over the last 20 to 30 years is amazing. We've got so many smart people that live here. What my role, I think, would be is to bring as many of those minds together and make sure that every aspect of what we do is pointed towards a success for this area. And that's not that difficult. It's really about focusing on what's really important. And for me, what's really important is looking after our people, looking after the culture and the history of our area, but also making sure that our community is content and not at war with each other, not at war with ideals, that sort of stuff, just focusing on what's really important to us. And that is making sure this is the best place to live in the world. So I do want to thank Peter Pinson. She's been an amazing leader, an incredible woman. Thanks also to Danielle Maltman and Josh Slade, who have been excellent counsellors. It's been an honour serving with them. I'm really looking forward to what the future holds, but I also want to thank our community for giving me the opportunity to represent over a long period of time, and I really look forward to leading the community into the future.